I don't like sleeping in the dark. I hate being alone in this house.
The light in the upstairs room was on again. Elliot Warren noticed it while rinsing his coffee mug. A thin yellow line glowed across the ceiling beam, steady, quiet, unmistakable. He hadn't touched any switch upstairs since he arrived. He stood there for a moment, waiting for it to fade. It didn't. Elliot was 38, a novelist whose last deadline had slipped by 6 months. His editor had stopped being polite about it. "Go somewhere quiet," she'd said. No phone, no noise, no excuses. So he'd packed up his laptop, a few notebooks, and driven out of the city into the Appalachians. A rented summer cabin, cheap and remote. The listing photos had shown a small wooden house surrounded by pines, a gravel path, a lake somewhere nearby. Solitude promised, solitude delivered. The first 2 days passed exactly as he'd hoped. He woke early, made coffee, wrote until afternoon, walked the same narrow trail behind the house, came back to cook something simple. Evenings were silent except for insects and wind. It felt like the right kind of isolation. Quiet, harmless, productive. On the third night, close to midnight, he noticed the light. He was cleaning up the kitchen when he saw it again, that faint glow spreading across the ceiling above the stairs. It came from the room at the far end of the hall upstairs, the one he hadn't bothered opening since arrival. He frowned, set the mug down, and climbed the steps. The boards creaked under his weight. The air felt heavier up there. The door stood slightly open, a strip of yellow cutting through the dark. He pushed it with his hand. Darkness. The light was gone. The bulb overhead was off. He flipped the switch by the door. Nothing. The room was empty. Bare wooden floor, a small dresser, a covered window. Nothing that could have produced any light. Elliot stood there for a few seconds, just long enough to be sure, then shook his head. "Guess I'm running on fumes," he muttered. Back downstairs, he poured another half cup of coffee. The house was still. Normal. Maybe it had been a reflection, or maybe he'd simply imagined it. After 2 days of little sleep, it was easy to see what wasn't there. He shut off the kitchen lamp and stood for a moment in the dark, letting his eyes adjust. The hallway above was black again. He headed to bed, telling himself he wouldn't think about it. But he did, right up until he fell asleep. The next evening came pale and soundless. Elliot hadn't written a single word that day. Every time he looked at the blank document, his eyes drifted toward the staircase, toward the door he hadn't opened since the night before. By 9, the thought of that room felt almost physical. He took his flashlight, climbed the stairs, and stepped inside. The air was colder here, heavier. The beam of light caught dust spinning slowly in the air, like faint smoke. In the far corner sat an old VCR, its red indicator light still glowing weakly. A single VHS tape rested on top, covered in a thin gray film. He crouched, brushed the dust away. No label, no handwriting. Just silence sealed in plastic. He slid the tape inside. The machine whirred, the television came to life, and the room filled with a soft, steady hiss. At first, only static. Then slowly, a shape formed on the screen. A face blurred by distortion, colors bleeding and twisting. Then came her voice.
"This is my home. There used to be 5 of us."
Her tone was calm, ordinary, almost tender.
"My parents slept in the front room. They liked to keep the window open, even in winter. You could hear the trees moving when the wind came down the hill."
The static crackled as she spoke, but her rhythm stayed even.
My brother's room was across the hall. He collected little things. Stones, feathers, bottle caps. Lined them up on the windowsill. They're probably still there.
The voice slipped between bursts of noise.
Grandma lived downstairs. She never liked a staircase. Said it leaned to the left. I didn't notice until the night she fell.
A short pause followed, the kind that felt like remembering.
I found her. The railing had splinters afterward. I kept one. It's in the drawer.
Elliot's throat tightened. He hadn't noticed the drawer in the small dresser before.
After that, the house changed. It started to learn how to be empty. You don't really hear silence until someone dies inside it.
The static grew louder, then thinned again. Her voice returned, closer now, like she'd moved nearer to the microphone.
My parents died next. Gas leak at night. They said it happened fast. My brother and I were away at camp. When we came back, the windows were still fogged from the inside.
The screen flickered once. The outline of her face shifted. No eyes, just a shimmer in the static.
He didn't talk much after that. He hated the smell of the house. Said he kept dreaming that he was breathing smoke. One morning he just didn't wake up. They said it was suffocation. Strange, isn't it?
Silence followed. The kind that feels alive, like it's listening.
And this room is mine. I'm all alone in this house now. Sometimes it gets so quiet. I really love when someone comes to visit.
A faint breath followed, as if someone leaned close to the microphone.
I don't like sleeping in the dark. I hate being alone in this house.
Low crackle filled the screen, and her final words came out distorted, lower in pitch. Then, nothing. The image collapsed into gray static. The tape kept spinning, but there was no sound, only the low mechanical hum of the reels. Elliot sat there in the dim light, unsure how long he'd been staring into the blank screen. When he finally pressed stop, the click cut through the air like a blade. The house was dead silent again. He looked at the dark screen, at his reflection in the glass. And for a second, it didn't look like him. Elliot didn't write that night. He tried, but every sentence felt wrong, as if the story he was supposed to finish was already somewhere inside the house, waiting for him to find it. He closed the laptop and stared at the dark window. The forest outside was perfectly still. No wind, no insects, just the faint hum of electricity in the walls. Near midnight, he decided to sleep. The bed creaked when he lay down, loud in the quiet. He turned off the lamp. Darkness folded around him like heavy cloth. For a while, he lay awake, listening to his own breathing. Eventually, he drifted off. He dreamed of the house again. The upstairs hallway was brighter this time, washed in a pale gray glow. The television in the corner flickered with static. The same woman's voice came through, soft and close.
I'm so glad someone came to visit. It's been so long. You're sleeping in my brother's room, you know.
He turned, and she was sitting at the foot of his bed. Her hair hung loose, her head slightly tilted, as if she were studying him.
He used to sleep just like you do. So still.
Before he could move, she was no longer at the foot of the bed. She was on the bed, kneeling over him. Her hands pressed gently around his throat. Not rage, not violence, just calm, deliberate weight. He tried to shout, but the air caught in his lungs. Her voice was almost kind.
Now it's quiet again.
He jerked awake, gasping. The lamp was off, the room dark and cold. His heart hammered as he clutched at his neck. Nothing there. Just a dream. He told himself that. just a dream. He sat up, breathing hard. The memory of the girl's words wouldn't leave his head. Her brother had died in his sleep. Suffocation. Exactly like that. He ran a hand through his hair, forcing himself to calm down. "Get a grip," he muttered. "You're fine." But he didn't want to stay in that room anymore. He grabbed his pillow and decided to sleep downstairs. The stairs creaked under his feet. Halfway down, one step dipped lower than he expected. His heel slipped. The world spun. He tumbled forward, weightless for a second. Then the sharp crash of wood and air. And somewhere, distant but clear, a voice echoed. The one from the tape.
Grandma lived downstairs. She never liked the staircase. Said it leaned to the left. I didn't notice until the night she fell.
5 days later, a car pulled up in front of the cabin. The man who stepped out wore a gray suit and carried a briefcase. His name was David, Elliot's editor. He had driven up from the city after days without an answer. The door was unlocked. The air inside was still and stale. A laptop sat open on the table, the screen black. "Elliot?" he called. No reply. He moved slowly through the hall. At the foot of the staircase, he stopped. Elliot was there, lying motionless, one arm twisted beneath him, his face turned toward the light that spilled from the living room. The pillow was still clutched against his chest. For several seconds, David couldn't move. The silence in the house felt enormous, pressing. He reached for his phone with a trembling hand, and then, from upstairs, came a faint mechanical click, the sound of the VCR starting. A soft hiss of static drifted down the staircase, followed by a woman's voice, calm, even, almost gentle.
Now there are 6 of us.
If this story unsettled you, leave a like and let the shadows know. Subscribe for more tales you shouldn't hear after dark. And if you've seen something you can't explain, tell us in the comments. We're always listening.